So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our conjunction video of the week. And today we're going to be covering our conjunction of Mercury or Sun, Mercury, Mars, and Saturn. And what happens when these four planets are conjunct in your horoscope. And as always, if you do not know, if you have this conjunction, what other conjunctions you have, other planetary placements you have, for that check out the links here. Check out my full astrological report, including my books, Astrology, Conjunction, Aspects, and Mahadashas at the Speed of Light, including all my consultations at this link. So, Sun, Mercury, Mars, and Saturn. Well, what is Sun? Sun represents father, authorities, vitality, energy, ego, self-esteem, confidence, authorities, government, gold. Mercury represents speech, communication, intellect, education, business, accounting. Mars represents logic, statistics, lawyer, engineer, technologist, fighter, soldier, brother. Saturn represents a servant, work, administration. Saturn represents social welfare, social reform, non-profit organizations, beggars, poor people, anybody who's kind of suffering in this life can be seen through Saturn. Saturn is mechanics, mechanical things, duty, commitment, sacrifice. Each planet can represent a truckload of things. I'm just telling you the most basic of this. So what happens when these four planets are conjunct in your horoscope? Well, on a very common theme, and believe me, most of you will resonate with this. I have seen this conjunction make people either go into civil engineering, regular engineering, logic, and accounting. That's the most of the time I've seen it. Person can also go into law with this. Like if there's a short way to describe this conjunction, is a very technical person, technically intellectual person, very intelligent person who's very technical, whether they're physicists or whether they're accountants, whether they're analytics. They love to deal with numbers. They love to look at things in a very critical and technical manner. Most of the time, because especially when I do my career consultations, after seeing these consultations over and over again, the top three careers, like I told you, I've seen civil engineers mainly, accountants, or like normal engineers. This just happens over and over again. Now, obviously, some girl living in California, Long Beach, may not follow the same steps. Instead of like civil engineering, she may do, let's say, government administration work. She may do business management with this. Because remember, Mercury represents a manager. Mars is a manager. Saturn represents organizations. Sun represents authority. So depending upon which country you're from, becomes very, very important. Now, obviously, you will have female civil engineers as well. But I've seen when I use the same analysis on a female in a completely different country, it turned out to be the other thing than what I thought. Even with like the nakshatras and the house placement, those things happen. But you get a sense that they'll always be in this thing. So instead of like civil engineers, they were actually doing analytical work, dealing with like crunching numbers, like working for some bank or, just being very technical. These are very technical conjunction. Mercury naturally represents your speech, communication, learning. So your learning is very proper, very statistically, inclined towards how to grasp knowledge. You're a very aggressive speaker, very to the point person. Like you don't like to BS around. You say what you want, when you want, how you want, and you don't care what people think when you say something. Your speech has this authoritativeness to it. Your father was a very technical person. Father must have been either an engineer or working in the government. Now, obviously, which house this conjunction is placed in will give a broader sense, like especially in the fourth house can make a person a builder. architect, real estate person. In the 6th house, 9th house, 10th house can take a person into government related work. 8th house, usually I've seen civil engineers. 5th house and 8th house, or even 10th house, more of like the civil engineer thing come up. Because remember, Mars is engineer, Saturn is mechanical things. So mechanical engineer. Mercury represents skills of hands, measurements. Sun represents physics, mathematics. So all of these things are combining to, give you a certain career in life. And depending upon how the mind is inclined towards certain things, you may either go into engineering or you may go into politics and law. And shows you have a heavy influence of the father, and the karmas of the father has been transferred upon you. Usually these people follow what the father was doing, follow what the father is doing. Your brother, you have a very competitive relationship with your brother, if you have a brother. And yet very strong communicative bond with your male friends. This person is extremely competitive. Like for them, it is important for them to win at certain things, be victorious at certain things. Whether it's debating, talking to somebody, whether it's fighting and playing a sport or being an athlete, because this can produce great athletes as well. And Mercury, which represents communication, usually this person will be very technically gifted with their communicative ability. Especially with Mercury involvement, information technology can come into play, especially with the 3rd house or Rahu's nakshatra being involved. Rahu's aspect being involved can take a person from like civil engineering to, information technology and computer engineering. But, just one word, a technical soul, technical person. Somebody who will do very well, in physics, or even like, let's say I've had this conjunction occurring in the sign of Aquarius for someone in the nakshatra of Sastabhishak, and they were in aerospace industry. So, it just, once you do everything systematically, it just shows, where this person will be inclined towards. Now, obviously, if you had Moon, Venus, and Jupiter in the sign of Aquarius and nakshatra of Sastabhishak, this person may actually be a tarot reader or somebody in a cult, mysticism, or somebody who will be a doctor. But this is more of a technical conjunction. Obviously in Sastabhishak can produce like people who go into dentistry or surgery. That requires technical skill. You cannot be a dentist or surgeon without technical skill. That's just very, very much of a common sense. So this is what this conjunction, mainly does. And as much as now, and one thing I always kind of forget to remind people, like, of course, when sun is involved and if all the planets are too close to the sun, they're considered combust. However, I'll be honest with you, combustion has never really failed many people. Like I've had people who had sun literally 5-6 degrees away with the Saturn, Mercury, Mars together, and yet they had normal good education. They were civil engineers. Yet what happens is this. They lose track or lose sight of their goals most of the time. Because the sun is so bright upon these planets, what they do, they work, but they lose sight of where they're going. Like, imagine if I put a floodlight in front of you and told you to walk towards the light. You will trip, you will fall, you won't see anything. So what happens with combustion is that mistakes are made on the path. Silly mistakes are made on the path. like you're just drunk walking. Yet you are aware, I'm an engineer, I'm an architect, I'm a lawyer, yet still you will just make those silly mistakes. Because now these planets are very heated. They're like being blindfolded. Like when you have a competitive drive, you won't realize when to stop. Are you going to fight to kill, or are you just going to fight to defeat? That's what happens with this. The action of Mars, the competitive drive of Mars, loses that sight. Okay? So guys, this was my analysis of Sun, Mercury, Mars and Saturn conjunction. If you're new in my channel, subscribe below. Again, if you want to know where your conjunction is, all your other astrological details, my reports, consultations, check out the links here. Otherwise, we'll see you later.